Namaskar and welcome to this program titled Resetting Trade Ties with China. We'll be looking at whether this is an opportune moment to reset trade ties with China, whether the opportunity presents itself, and if so, how this can be done. And we have with us an eminent panel. Let me introduce you to them. Ambassador T.C.A. Rangachari has served a long and distinguished career in the Indian Foreign Service. He served in Hong Kong, Beijing in the mid-70s during the Cultural Revolution. He served on several UN committees representing India, UNDP, UNFPA, and UNICEF. He was India's ambassador to Algeria, Germany, and France. He served in the Ministry of External Affairs in several capacities and in the Ministry of Finance, and speaks Chinese and French besides English, Hindi, and Tamil. And his area of interest after his retirement has been the rise of China and the international system. Professor Mahindra P. Lama is a PhD in economics. He's a professor of the School of International Studies at JNU. He's a former vice chancellor of the Central University of Sikkim, former pro-vice chancellor of IGNOU, adjunct fellow, Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. He's the honorary chief economic advisor to the government of Sikkim, the lead author of the vision document for the Northeast 2035 of Niti Aayog. His areas of interest are regional cooperation and integration, energy, trade, investment, migration, security and border studies, hills and mountain studies, Northeast region of India. He has had several peer-reviewed publications and is the co-author of India-China, Rethinking Borders and Security. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador Rangachari, let me start with you. It cannot be business as usual. So do you think that we have a new template now for India-China relations?
Peace and tranquility are the basis on which relationship in other areas can go forward. If you read the text of the 93 agreement, the 96 agreement, there were very specific actions and also the injunctions against actions in order to ensure that the border areas remained peaceful. It's very clear, the build-up, the infrastructure, bringing in a variety of weapons system, building up troop levels and so on, moving forward from positions which were not held at the time when these agreements were signed. The Chinese have not abided by these agreements. Therefore, business as usual is not and cannot be the norm. Once we go back to observing the agreements that have already been signed between the two countries, once we go back to maintaining peace and tranquility, once we agree that the line of actual control and any change for that matter in the border areas would not be affected or attempted to be affected through the use of force, we can go back to developing relationship in other areas, and very clearly that includes trade and economic relationship.
All right. Professor Lama, would you think that, cannot be business as usual can mean that this is an opportunity to correct the trade imbalance? There have been certain instruments put in place. We've seen Atmanirbhar Bharat strengthening India's manufacturing. There's a PLI scheme that incentivizes MSMEs to reduce their dependence on China. It sets it up in a sense that, we are in a position to try and correct the trade imbalance.
What is very interesting at this juncture is we have increasingly realized, because our trade with China in the last, I would say 30 years, we started with few $1 million, has reached staggering $80 billion to $90 billion.
Right.
Therefore, this gives us a good opportunity when our Prime Minister, propounds Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is basically broad-basing our export composition. Why not we export finished products? Why not we join supply chains? Why not we really make China a specific area? Say, for example, China would require a heavy dose of dairy products, and we are the largest producer of tea or milk in the world. So what stops us from sending what you call the pharmaceuticals, the dairy sector items, and large number of other items to really change the trade deficit?
So that's how we can change the trade basket in a sense. But we also look for other markets Ambassador Rangachari, and India is not a part of RCEP. And how does this fit into the equation? I mean, how do we look at new markets? Because China is flooding the world with its own products.
Most of our trade bodies and associations have a number of proposals which they would like the government to act on, and would like to ensure that the costs that our own industry, our own producers, manufacturers, service providers, they incur are lessened in a manner in which they are competitive in the global market. Insofar as China is concerned, reports now say that for the Chinese have now overtaken United States as the #1 trade partner. Probably this is true insofar as manufactured goods is concerned. But if you include services, United States is still the #1 trade partner for India. This is where the asymmetry comes in, where there is a certain openness to the Indian market. We do not see a similar openness on the Chinese side. And this is something which the Indian, both at the private sector level as well as at the level of the government, has been raised with the Chinese side. Pharmaceuticals is a very important, particularly in the present circumstances when this pandemic is raging across the world, and India is doing what has come to be called COVID diplomacy. It's not a very nice term, but probably there is an element of truth in that. Pharma is in a very important sector where India has made great strides domestically. And you would recall that a couple of decades ago in the United States, special dispensation was made for Indian generic drugs for AIDS and so on, because Indian produced drugs were much cheaper than what was available at that time in the United States.
Okay, given that we have talked a little bit about pharmacy, India has been described as the pharmacy of the world, and also now the vaccine manufacturer of the world. There's a lot of goodwill that India is generating because of vaccine Maitri. Professor Lama, what do you think? I mean, the Chinese should allow market access for Indian generic products in the pharmaceutical space, because I mean, the Chinese will probably benefit a great deal. I'm sure the common Chinese would benefit a lot from having, Indian generic medicines.
As far as pharmaceuticals industry is concerned, and pharmaceuticals are concerned, my stay in China and my interactions with a large number of people there, academics, journalists, and did show that, Chinese are desperate to get cheaper and more effective pharmaceutical products from India, because it's too expensive. Even a very simple drugs related to fever, cough are so expensive there as compared to India. They are surprised when we say that in India, you'll find that in 1 rupee, 10 rupee, 15 rupees, right there. So I think one of the major attempts by the government of India in very near future is to really tell Chinese that, look, this is the only way forward for us to get into your market.
Professor Lama, is this a time now, there's the trade war between the US and China. Some would look at this as an opportunity for India to take advantage. How can India maximize, its strengths? And India is already a big player in the tech industry. Would you think that that's one area where, India can move forward? In fact, even the Minister of State for Commerce, Mr. Hardeep Puri, said e-commerce, fintech, blockchain, these have potential for India.
Yes, the decoupling and what you call unwinding of US-China economic ties, which happened in the last 4 years, that have had a very adverse impact on China, right? Many of the global companies which were basically exporting to the United States from China, they have started very quickly, they have steadily withdrawing themselves, including HP, Dell, Microsoft, Lenovo, Apple, and all, they are all withdrawing. And you will also find at the same time, a large number of Japanese companies are also withdrawing from China. So this gives us a very good opportunities as to shift what you call the production base from China to a very fertile country like India and any parts of India. And that gives us absolutely a kind of an unparalleled advantage as far as replacing China as a manufacturing center. And that is where I think we need to really realign, rejig our policies as far as global trade is concerned.
Ambassador Rangachari, so the investments that Japan and Korea are putting into India in manufacturing and also in infrastructure, to what extent does this help India, prop India up, as we sort of are competing with China in the global supply chain?
Well, 2 points. Number one, whatever happens, whether it is in terms of trade or economic relationship or investments and so on, has to have an economic merit. Yes, if there is a shift away from China and companies are looking for alternative destinations, if it is for political reasons, we may or may not be able to take advantage of that. But if it is for economic reasons, that is to say that the costs in India are seen to be much cheaper, the atmosphere, the environment for doing business out of India is seen to be much friendlier. In that case, we would be definitely succeeding. Now, that is a decision that has to be made by the companies who plan to move away from any location. In this instance, we are talking about China, but that could be true of any other location also. The second thing is, so far as the US-China decoupling is concerned, it is not yet evident in the trade figures between China and the United States. The volume of bilateral trade between China and the US is still substantial. The surpluses that the Chinese are running in the American market, in the American trade, is still very substantial. And till such time we see evidence on that front, we cannot say that we are really becoming a substitute insofar as China is concerned. The other related point is that as far as manufacturing is concerned, for our own reasons, irrespective of what happens in China, whatever happens between the United States and China, India as a country with such a large population, and India as a country with a major economy, which is now perhaps the fourth or the fifth in global terms, maybe not, pandemic years may be exempted. We need to be a manufacturing giant on our own, in our own right. It should not be done because of reasons like what China is doing or not doing.
Certainly. I mean, obviously, this presents India with an opportunity, and we can see that infrastructure and systems are being put in place to help India's manufacturing sector grow. But India and China have several agreements, Professor Lama, several agreements, and there is also a strategic, economic, and financial dialogue. But unfortunately, China doesn't play by the rules. So the question is that if there's a new template, as Ambassador Rangachari was suggesting right at the start, how do we fit India's strengths into this template?
See, first of all, at least for the next decade or so, it is very, very difficult for China and India to come together on issues related to trade, investment, because the way China has betrayed India, the way there is a mass suspicion about China doing something positive in South Asia or in India. I think it's absolutely a very devastating trend. We took almost 40 years to overcome what happened in 1962, and will take several years, because no one would be really openly willing to participate in the process of cooperations and integrations between India and China as far as economic relations are concerned. But one or two things can really change the situation. Say, for example, most of our investments in China, right, by what you call Adani Group, Reddy's Labs, Jindal Steel, Bharat Heavy Electricals, Godrej, and all kinds of investments are mostly concentrated in a province like Jiangsu, Shandong, and Guangdong. What we are saying is, why not? Why China let Indian investment is spread over to many other parts? Say, for example, if India allows it if China allows it in a province like Yunnan, Indian products can straight away go to entire Southeast Asian countries, right, including Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, and all kinds of things. And it can be done precisely because China has started doing that. The most serious part of it is if Chinese have to really do some kind of substantive investment in India, it cannot really bypass the Indian regulatory framework. In the past, we have seen that it has come through various surreptitious means and captured some areas, right? Now, this cannot be done, so it has to really strictly go by the rules of the game, both at the global level and at the bilateral level.
Ambassador Rangachari, what sort of role does economic power play in diplomacy? I mean, as you did mention that we are the fifth largest economy, and in PPP terms, actually, we are the third largest economy in the world. So how would you look at, India in that context, a huge market for the world, potential market, leveraging this in diplomacy?
Let me make 2 points. First, in continuation of what Professor Lama was saying, I think what the developments in Ladakh since June have done has been to give such a serious setback to public perception in India in regard to China, that it makes it very difficult for any government in India to take meaningful initiatives to go back to the kind of momentum there was in the relationship between the two countries prior to June 2020. Now, this is a country which is based on democracy. Any government will have to pay attention, and very serious attention, to what public opinion and public thinking is. For over 35 years, India and China took various steps in order to build that level of public confidence, public trust, and favorable public opinion. And by one stroke, more or less, that has been set back so much. And I agree with Professor Lama that it may take much longer time to build this as compared to the post-62 atmosphere. The second thing is, whatever the Chinese investments are trying, this is also linked. The question is, if tomorrow the Chinese come here and invest in major projects, how will it be received by the Indian public? Is that something which is going to be seen favorably, and will it be seen only from an economic perspective? Will it be seen also in terms of whatever the Chinese have done in that perspective? And as far as the size of the economy is concerned, let me go back to the 1970s, when the United States was building up its new relationship with China. It didn't really count for very much. And you have to look no further than Kissinger's writings, Nixon's writings, the key players in that relationship on the American side, to get confirmation of this. It's only after the post, let's say, the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, when there were perceptions in the world that China is going to overtake the United States in terms of its economic size and so on. And the Americans, in the American side, there was this whole approach of declining America, rising China, all this sort of thing, that increasingly the United States and the world started taking China not merely in political terms, but also in economic terms seriously. And therefore, one cannot underemphasize the growth, economic size, the power in the economic side that a country might wield. And in any case, irrespective of whatever power we might come to have in global terms, this growth in the economic size in India is necessary for our own people, for getting people in India out of poverty. Just a couple of days ago, there was a report about how Xi Jinping had talked in terms of China having eliminated poverty in the course of the last 10 years and so on. We should be able to say that in regard to our own people, forget about what the world might think or what it might give us vis-a-vis global power, regional power, all that sort of thing.
Right.
We need to do it because Indian people need to become prosperous. They need to be comfortable in their lives, and they need to have all the wherewithals that is required to have a good standard of living.
Professor Lama, so the trade deficit has come down. That's because we have increased our exports in terms of specifically iron and ore. Iron and steel has gone up quite a lot, 300%, in fact, over 300% iron and steel in the last year, and imports have been reduced by about 11%. So do you think that this is the beginning of a trend? I mean, are we likely to see some balance trade taking place maybe down the line?
That's what I was telling Mark.
Yeah.
We really have to retrospect our positions. India was the country that led the entire non-aligned movement, group of 77, UNCTAD in the North-South dialogue, primarily to emphasize that the primary commodity exporters, like what we do today, iron ore, should be given adequate and equitable treatment as far as trading pattern is concerned, because the prices, terms of trade were always against the developing countries. That's why the Pearson Commission report, the Brand Commission report. Today, it is so sad that the developed market economies, which used to be the perpetrators of, the perpetrators behind the terms of trade decline, is replaced by a single country, China. Therefore, one major action for India is to remobilize all these developing countries again in Africa, in Asia, and in other, even in Latin America, to really come back, make a platform and say that what China is doing at the global level is absolutely wrong. We must look for what you call resource nationalism and stop China from really harnessing only the raw materials from developing countries and re-exporting as value added. And that has distorted the entire global trading pattern, totally disregarding what even the World Trade Organization has been propounding.
Ambassador Rangachari, we have a target of $5 trillion over the next 5 years. It's been set back because of the 1 year of COVID, but we are getting back on track with high growth this year in double digits for the calendar year. But what do you think? I mean, this is an opportunity for Indian industry to deliver. The pandemic has sort of, brought the entire world to a place where, those who have been given a second chance to sort of take the lead. And what do you think? Do you think Indian industry can rise to the occasion?
I think this is something which remains to be seen. Certainly one should hope that the conditions that prevail as at present would be seen as favorable by our own industry to come back into investment, and also for the people to increase their savings levels, etc. Whether that happens is something that we'll have to wait and see. But certainly that is the direction in which we need to go. One final point in regard to India and China, and that is that frankly it's still, to my mind, it's inexplicable why the Chinese did what they did. Absolutely. And I think in order to be able to get back to quote unquote business as usual, it is very important that at least at some level there should be explication from the Chinese side, there should be understanding on the Indian side of why whatever happened. Without that, we would always be in our minds unclear, and therefore this would be a kind of a Damocles sword, so to speak, hanging over our thinking processes. We may be able to deal with the situation as we did in Ladakh. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that they will always be suspicious about the long-term intentions, even short-term intentions. This is
Yes.
not a good sign. This is not a sign for people like us who have been in this business of trying to work for good relations between India and China over a long period of time,
Yes.
to see that the Chinese are deliberately taking actions which are hindering rather than helping the process of better relationship between the two countries.
Professor Lama, one more point I wanted to raise, because you're an expert on the Northeast as well. The stake of the Northeast in good relations between India and China. Yes.
When you in the Atma Nirbhar Bharat of the Prime Minister, I think it is quite inspiring. One of the things which is very inspiring is we are not going to diversify exports and services base only, but we are going to diversify the geographical basis of manufacturing services base. Why not we bring all these peripheries, the northeast part of India, Orissa, the Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, all these places where we have literally neglected as far as industrial development, as far as the growth process is concerned. I think they have to be brought in. This is where
fragile ecological zones. There must be.
No. There are. Why not? Like Sikkim does extensive business. Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand on pharmaceuticals. They have done it. Nobody had thought 20 years back that this is going to be the center of attraction as far as pharmaceutical production centers are concerned. But what is very critical here is in the Act East policy of India, we have a major agreement with Japan vis-a-vis the Northeast. I think if we are able to bring 3 to 4 Japanese investors substantively participating in Northeast, I think that is going to change the entire dynamics, entire production processes that side.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rangachari and Professor Mahendra Lama, for this enlightening discussion. And we leave it there. And thank you very much for watching. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
खुशी है मुझे कि मेरे योगदान